Hello everyone and welcome to this month's LinkAbility webinar. We're glad you're here. We're going to be talking about how to create content on LinkedIn that gets you visibility and enhances your credibility. I'm Lynnaire Johnston, the Word Wizard, your host. Thank you so much for joining us. One of the things that we get the most questions about in our work with clients, helping them to get the most out of LinkedIn, is how to get great content onto the platform that people want to read and that they engage with. It's been a while since we talked about this on a webinar and things have changed. So we're going to be taking some of those questions today that people often ask us and talk a bit about those so that you can benefit from their experience as well as ours. Now, I want to start today by explaining to you a little bit about how you get on LinkedIn publishing and do it well. But before we even start to talk about the nuts and bolts of that, I wanted to explain, I think, a bit about why we should be doing this. You see, my own journey with LinkedIn began when I realized that you could publish on LinkedIn. And as a former writer, editor, and journalist, to me, it was a no-brainer. All of a sudden, I just wanted to be here because I could see that there were so many opportunities. So why should you publish on LinkedIn? Well, the first reason is, of course, because you want to get visibility. Now, what that means is that people will see your content, they will recognize your name, and you will start to become well known in your field. And what does that do? That builds credibility. You start to be seen as the expert in your niche. And people come to you with questions, with ideas, and to you when they want to use your products or services. We all have a personal brand. Just remember, of course, that when someone types your name into Google, one of the first three things that will come up in the search results is your LinkedIn profile. So your profile is part of your brand. You want to make your profile as good as it possibly can be so that when people go to it, they go, wow, this person looks really impressive. That enhances your personal brand. Publishing also allows you to demonstrate your experience, your expertise, your skill, and your knowledge. And we're going to be talking about how to do that today. And of course, if you are someone who, like me, likes to share information, help other people to do things really well, then the publishing platform on LinkedIn is ideal for that. And that then feeds into demonstrating your expertise, building your personal brand, your credibility, and your visibility. There are a number of different ways you can publish on LinkedIn, and I've got a list of them here for you, and we're going to go through them all in a bit more detail in a moment. This list has been stable for a while, with the exception of the newsletter, which is a new addition. They were arrived at the end of last year for people who have creator mode turned on, so you could do a newsletter from your personal profile. And just in the last few weeks, they've become available from company pages too. So we're going to talk a bit about those because I think they are a game changer. So let's talk about the different formats. And the first one is text-only posts. Now, as the name implies, all you can have on these kind of posts are text, except you can also have emojis, you can add bullet lists, and you need to have hashtags at the end. We'll talk about hashtags in a bit more detail in a moment. But in terms of the text, what you want to do in order to make your post perform really strongly is to have a headline. The first few words or the first line of your post is what will be seen in the news feed. It needs to make people stop in their tracks. If you can do that with a post, then people will click the see more button and they'll read a little bit further. In the last year, in fact, in about the last 8 or 9 months, LinkedIn allowed us to make our text posts a little longer. They were 1,200 characters, which was the final length of any post. But now we've got up to 3,000 characters, which makes it a lot easier, and we don't have to spend so much time trying to edit things down to fit. So text-only posts do very well. And for a lot of people, they are the most important and useful way of being able to post on LinkedIn. The second one is image and text. Now, each of these subsequent types of posts also have the text at the top as part of the post, and then this extra bit that I'm going to talk about now underneath it. So in this case, it's an image, but it doesn't have to be just one. It could be multiple images. But in this particular example on the screen here, you can see there is just one image that sits underneath the text. Now, we're finding at the moment that the Instagram style or size of image is working really well. And that's 1,200 by 1,200 pixels. And that will be a really good size to show really well and stand out in the newsfeed. Also, in the last year, LinkedIn has added editing tools to images. So when you start to upload your image to your post, there are a range of tools that you can use to make it stand out better. You can do all kinds of fancy things with it. And if you're a design type person or you really like playing with photos, you might find that is a really useful tool for you. Now, the next post type is the video. And video is becoming increasingly important on LinkedIn, and we're seeing a lot more people use it. And in fact, this event is a very good example of video being used on LinkedIn. Now, these need to be done in a specific sort of a way to get the most use from them. So you want to make sure that your video is really well put together. It needs to be highly produced in the sense of that you don't want to be outside in the wind. You want to have good lighting, and you want to make it as professional as possible. Now, that doesn't mean to say you can't record it on your phone, because you can, but you want to make sure that you are adding some extra bits and pieces to it, principally captions. Now, we believe that captions are exceedingly important when it comes to videos on LinkedIn, because not everybody is able to listen or hear your video. But you want people to be able to know what's going on. So if you add captions, then that's a really good way of making it more accessible to more people. Now, videos that are uploaded natively, so that's directly from your computer or from your phone, do a lot better than other types of videos. You can upload them from Vimeo. They seem to do really well too, but not from YouTube. I always think it's important to keep your videos short. So make them around about a minute, preferably no longer than 2 minutes if you want people to get right to the very end. Now, the very first few seconds are critical, and here's why. LinkedIn counts video posts differently to all of the other post types. All the other post types are counted as a view when they are placed into the newsfeed. It doesn't mean that somebody has necessarily seen them. But when it comes to a video, a view is only added to a post, a video post, if in fact somebody has watched it for the first 3 seconds. So that's why making your video really professional and getting people to watch it for at least that length of time is important if you want to have that counted as a view. But don't compare the views of videos with other kinds of posts, because that's not how it's going to work for you. Now, the next type of format is the document. Now, we're a fan of this too, because these are performing extremely well and have done for the last 12 to 18 months, really since they were first introduced. This is an opportunity to be able to have a presentation, generally as a slideshow, a PDF, on the newsfeed as part of your post. So you want these to be visual, you want the words words to be nice and big, you want them to be colorful, and you want to make the text really simple and easy to follow. So what we do is we have a template set up in Canva, which is where you can also do these, and we put all of our text onto the different the different tiles or the different pages in the template, and then download it as a PDF and upload it as a post. Now they do, as I say, really well and are performing strongly. So they're ideal if you want to do something that is a bit more creative or has a bit more detail to it than just a text post. Now, polls are something you are bound to have seen in your newsfeed. They're quite common, and the more you vote on them, the more you will see them in your newsfeed. We quite like polls because they give you a really good, simple and easy way to get a post up and out. You need a really good question, and you can provide up to 4 answers, which then people vote on. Now, you want people also to be commenting if you possibly can, because engagement is really important on posts, and we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. Engagement is important. So people voting is one thing, but people who are putting comments about the post or the poll is quite another, and that's where the gold is. So my suggestion for this is that you make your 4th answer comment below, or other comment below, so that people then will tell you in a bit more detail why it is that they have not voted for numbers 1 to 3. So you'll see quite a lot of different style polls in the news feed. We favour business related ones, but we're seeing an awful lot of those that are not, simply to be able to get the numbers. Now, why are people doing that? Because they want the lead generation. The person who puts up the poll is able to see who has voted. That means they can get in touch, find out if that person is interested in knowing more about what they do, potentially connecting and starting a conversation. So that's quite a good way of being able to reach people who are interested. But it's important, I think, to make sure that your poll is relevant, because these are part of your activity on your profile, and people will want to see that you are focusing on business rather than on personal things. Newsletters are the newest format, and we are very pleased with these. They've been around since towards the end of last year on personal profiles, and just in the last month or so from company pages. Now, we like these because it gives us a lot more in terms of formatting options. So like articles, you can bold and underline text, you could add images and links and video to your newsletter or to your article as well, and they look really good. Now, one of the things that's making them so useful, I think, at present anyway, is because they are new and LinkedIn is giving them a bit of a boost. At least we think so. And I can tell you that we have had exceptional results with the newsletter from my personal profile, with a 25% subscribe rate. We've had exceptional results with company page newsletters too. And in fact, they are up in the 20% subscribe rate too. So we believe that these are an important way to be able to reach a new audience. You might think that newsletters are old-fashioned, and I would have too, but to be fair, they seem to be doing really well. So at the first time that you put out your newsletter, so that's the very first edition, it goes to all your connections if it's on your personal profile, and all your page followers if it's from your company page. So that gives it a really good boost to get going. From there, it means that you can invite people to subscribe to it, or people can find it and subscribe themselves. Now, those that are published from a personal profile can now be added to the featured section. And then that means there's an extra way that people can find them and subscribe. So my recommendation is that if you are going to do a newsletter from your personal profile, then you certainly add it to your featured section. Now, you're going to need a good image at the top of your newsletter. You're going to need a good name, and it can't be too long. And it really must say what your newsletter is going to be about, because the invitations for these pop into the messaging box where you get your connection invite messages. So somebody, if it's your newsletter, all that's going to show up is your profile photo, your headline, and the name of your newsletter. So make sure that it is one that people will find interesting and want to hit the accept button. You'll also need to decide how often you're going to produce your newsletter, and you can do it anything from daily, which I think is a little much, to monthly, but you could also do it weekly, and a lot of people are going down that track too. So we think that newsletters are a great thing to be getting on board with. You will, if you're doing them from your personal profile, need to have creator mode turned on. More on that shortly. Articles I have briefly mentioned, but it's worth just running over these again so that you've got a bit of an update and idea what they can do and what they don't do. First of all, they don't get you lots of visibility. So don't expect to have huge numbers of people looking at your articles. What they do is they build up into a library on the activity section of your profile or on your company page. And so they are a great way to build credibility. We like them, as I said, in terms of the newsletters because of the formatting options. You can make them look really good, and they can be as long as you like. So if it's a really long format that you enjoy writing, or something that you produce really well, then articles may well be the answer for you. Now, all of these formats that I've just mentioned are available from company pages. And we, as you know, if you've heard me speak before, believe that company pages are becoming increasingly important. If you have a business on LinkedIn or have a business full stop, then you need to have a company page on LinkedIn. Functionality from company pages is increasing all the time, which tells us that LinkedIn is going to make them even more important. LinkedIn is aiming to be the Amazon of the B2B marketplace. So it's putting a lot of effort into company pages, and it's the place that you need to go if you want to advertise on LinkedIn. So my suggestion is that you keep increasing your follower numbers as much as you can. You have 100 invites a month. Make sure you use every single one. And that you make sure too that you are posting regularly from your company page. Sure, you don't get as much in the way of reach, that's views, from your company page, but if someone was to do some due diligence to check you out before deciding whether to work with you, they will check out your company page. So you want to make sure that what they're going to be seeing is the best that you can possibly make it. And good quality posts from your company page are a great idea to build your brand. Now, posting tips for all types of posts are quite useful to know about. So let me just run over these ones that are the most important for you. As in any kind of copywriting, longer posts on LinkedIn outperform shorter posts. Now, there's a reason for that. One of the measurements that LinkedIn uses to decide whether or not to boost a post, put it into more news feeds, give it more airplay, is something called dwell time. And that's the amount of time that someone spends looking at a post. It's why you need more than 3 lines of text at the top, because if someone clicks the See More button to open up the post in their feed so they can read the rest of it, it tells LinkedIn that that post is relevant and important to that person, and it gives it higher voting, or really just ranks it more highly, and will send it out to more people in more news feeds. So make sure that your posts are a significantly long enough length to get people to firstly click See More and spend a bit of time reading it. Of course, every post needs an attention-grabbing headline. Where would we be without headlines? So make yours something that is not clickbait, but is something that grabs people's attention. Aim it for the people that you want to attract, that's your target audience, and make sure that there's something about it that just pops, that has the wow factor, that makes people go, oh, I want to read a bit more about that. So that it just kind of piques their curiosity. A lot of posts aren't formatted very well. So you see big blocks of dense text, for example. But if you format your post with space in between each of your paragraphs, so that's a blank line, it will look much nicer on the page and be more easy to read. And that again increases dwell time. So the more of these tips that you can add into your own posting, the better the results you're going to achieve. You really should check your posts for mistakes before you hit the upload button or the post button, because LinkedIn is your professional brand. This is where you show up about your work, your career, your business. And you want people to think that not only are you adept at your area of expertise, but the fact that you can communicate well too. So posts with mistakes in them do not really do much for your reputation. It's very easy to make mistakes, as I can tell you, but do double check, have someone else check them for you if you can before you post them, or read them out loud. It's always a good way to make sure that you've got your posts doing really well and full of no mistakes. Because if you edit your posts quickly after you've put it up, then that also does something to the algorithm that makes it go, not too sure about this. Ending with 3 to 5 hashtags is important. Now, hashtags are critical in terms of helping your post be able to be indexed by Google, to be found easily in searches, and also they dovetail into other areas of your LinkedIn profile. So the current best practice is between 3 and 5 of these. And here's what I suggest as best practice. Choose 2 of your 5 that have really large following. I'm talking millions of followers. Anything that's got less than 150,000 followers is not going to get you the reach that you probably wish. So really choose some that have got really good high numbers. You also want to choose 2 that are related to the subject of your post. So people, if they're searching for your topic, they will see your post more highly in their news feeds. And I also recommend that you choose one that's a personal one. So in my case, that's Lynnaire. You might have something that's related to your business. It might be your full name. It might be how your profile name, for example. Whatever it is that you decide, the idea behind that is to build a community of people who follow your posts and will see them more likely in their news feeds. Now, if you decide you only are going to have 3 hashtags, then choose one with a huge following, one that's related to your subject, and one that is your personal one. Now, I wanted just to share some research by the Dutch social seller Richard van der Blom, who does an annual research report every year about LinkedIn and how the algorithm is working and treating different aspects of our profiles and our LinkedIn marketing. So in his last one, late last year, he came up with these findings, which I wanted to share with you today. If you just take a baseline, for example, just say an ordinary post, say a text post with a baseline of just 0, then if you look at that, then polls will get you 450% more reach. Document posts, 250% more reach, and multiple image posts, and note the multiple here, multiple image posts, 150% more reach. So if you're wanting to get more reach with your posts, and that's something that's important to you, have a think about using these particular formats, because I think you'll find you'll get some really good results. Now, newsletters came out after Richard's last report, so I'll be very interested to see how they fare when he comes to do his research later this year. Now, if you want to improve your reach, so that's the number of views you're getting and your engagement, then there are a number of things that you can do. The first I've already mentioned, which is dwell time. So that's making your post long enough so that people can click the see more button, and it tells the algorithm that you are relevant and your post is interesting to the people who are reading it. The second one is to have quality content. We'll talk more about content shortly, but quality content will mean that your posts will be read more and they will get more engagement, which is something that we all want to have, because that's how we build our reputation and our credibility. Another area is to have a really good social selling result. Now, I've got an image of it here on the right-hand side, and it should be showing up around about now as a link in the chat, so that if you want to check your own social selling index, you can easily go and do that. So they are rated out of 100. And if you have anything over 70 or 75 as your score, then your posts will be seen by more people. Now, this is LinkedIn's own way of recognizing people's activity. It does have its disadvantages because it's a bit vague, to be fair. But if you are looking to improve your LinkedIn social selling index, then getting on and looking at the areas that you can see on the right of that image, there are 4 components that make up the score, then improving those will help you to get a higher score. And the higher score you have, the more the better your post will do, and the more engagement you are likely to receive. And the final tip I have for improving reach is to expand your network, because if you have a small network, not many people are going to see your posts. So the larger your network, the more people, by and large, will see your posts. Now, there is a tipping point on this, and you need to have at least 500 connections. And from there, of course, you would like to make sure that you have more connections and more followers. But as I talked about before, and no doubt you'll have heard me say before, bigger is not always best. You want people who are engaged and who know who you are. So I think it's important when you're expanding your network to keep in mind the people that you really want to be connected to. Some tips for posting well. Seeking engagement is important. And I think that it is one of the ways that we can all get major opportunities on LinkedIn. Engagement means asking questions. It potentially means making your post controversial, which is always a bit risky. It may mean for you that you talk about something that you want people to give feedback on. Whatever it is that you're doing in your post, make it clear to people what it is that you want them to do when they are commenting. That way, you will get more engagement, it will be clearer, it will spark a debate, and more people will get involved. Posting consistently is one of the best practices that you can put in place. Now, a lot of people will have heard that you need to post at certain days on certain times and so many times a week. But the LinkedIn god, Andy Foote, put out a post today to say that really you should be posting when you have something to say. Now, I agree with that. Don't post just for posting's sake. Post when you have got something useful, informative, educative, or even just interesting that you think people would want to know about. but do so on a consistent basis. Now, for you, that might be once a week. For me, it's 2 or 3 times a week. But once you start posting, do it consistently. Don't give up after 2 or 3 months. Just keep at it, because LinkedIn is a long game. The fewer external links you use in your posts, the better, because LinkedIn knows when you're trying to take somebody off the platform, and it doesn't reward your posts and can, in fact, penalize them. So keeping external links to a minimum is a really good idea. Don't try to get around this by putting your links in the comments. That won't help. But if you do want to put links in, then just make sure that they are something that's relevant and easy for people to get to. LinkedIn will truncate long links, so don't worry about trying to make them shorter in your post. You can just add in a long one and LinkedIn will cut it down for you. Quality content is really important. If you want to build a name for yourself, then you need to be putting up content and posts that are really good. So that is not promotional posts. That's not selling posts. That's not posts that will put potential customers off. Customers these days are really well informed, and they want to know more about what you do rather than you ramming it down their throat about how wonderful you are. So get rid of any posts that you think, or stop doing posts that are really sales oriented, and really instead have ones that create a bond between you and your target audience or potential clients. And do that by adding a little bit about yourself, your company, your business, certainly, but make it about them. Tell people how you solve their problems by talking about other people's problems, case studies, client stories, things that people can resonate with will really help you with putting together quality content. And my final tip in this area is to engage with other people's posts, because counterintuitively, the more you do, the more other people will engage on your posts. And really, when you think about it, that makes sense, because it's reciprocal. If you suddenly show up on somebody's post each week and you're commenting in a really positive way, then those people are going to go, oh, well, perhaps I better go and have a look at what they're writing, and will come and make comments on your posts as well. But there's also an algorithmic factor here. The algorithm knows when you are busy commenting on other people's posts, and it will reward your posts accordingly. Now, of course, with anything on LinkedIn, there are some things that you really need to be careful not to do. I've already talked about the fact that if posts are really short, they don't get that dwell time boost, and people don't get to click the see more button if they're only a couple of lines long. So don't make them ultra short, and I always err on the side of making them longer rather than shorter. Having no hashtags is a mistake. You'll still see posts without hashtags, and that really reduces the reach. You'll find that they have very few comments and likes in the main. People often want to tag others in a post, and that's perfectly acceptable, especially if they're being quoted or there's some kind of relevancy in the post. But if you just put up a whole bunch of names of people at the end of your post, that's called a tagging wall. It looks really ugly and it doesn't help, and here's why. If LinkedIn sees you doing it and the people who don't who you've tagged don't respond to your post with an engagement, with a comment, then LinkedIn will penalize your post. So make sure that if you're going to tag some people, tag people who are relevant. And if you really, really want to get your post in front of a bunch of people, tag them in the comments instead. Or alternatively, send your post to the people that you want to comment and ask them to do that. Block formatting I've mentioned too. That's where you just get a lot of text with no line breaks. Very hard to read, and it will put people off. Pre-formatted posts are those kind that say, giving kudos, I'm proud that I'm moved to a new job, that kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of these that LinkedIn makes available, and they just die. It's really surprising because with LinkedIn's own material, you'd think they would give these kinds of posts a bit of a boost, but they don't. So I recommend not using these at all and steering well clear of them. Posting too soon after your previous post, especially if it's done really well, is not a good idea either, because what happens is the second post will not do well, and also it will stop the first post growth. So my suggestion is that you wait until the view numbers have kind of leveled out on a post before adding your next one. And I don't advocate posting more than once every 24 hours either, because I think that that can have the same negative effect as on your posting results. And why waste the effort? If you're going to put effort into your posts, you don't want them to be stymied by being too close to each other. One of the ways to make your posts do really well is to get engagement. And I've mentioned these briefly, and I wanted to come back to it because I think it's so important. Engagement on your posts very quickly after they have been uploaded or published makes a big difference to the results you get. You want to have a few people commenting on your post within a very short period of time of you getting it up, preferably within the first 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 minutes if you can make it. The ways to do that are fairly reasonable. I mean, they're not surprising, I don't think. Asking a question at the end of your post, people then answer in the comments. Being controversial is interesting, but it's not something that I necessarily recommend because you might take a bit of heat. Be a bit careful about that one, and be careful what you're controversial about. Building your network will also make sure that you get more engagement. The smaller the network, the less engagement, because you've got fewer people who can comment. If you really want to make sure that people do comment on your post, or a particular person comments on your post, send it to people. There's a send button at the end of your post. Click that, put in the name of the person that you want to send it to, and write a wee note to ask them to comment on it and to say why. And then off you go, and you'll find that way people will make the extra effort to engage. The reason this works is because that your post may not show up in people's news feeds. It might not show up as a notification either. Whereas if you actually send it to them, they get it as a direct message, and that's always helpful. And again, tagging relevant people, but making sure they are the right people and not too many of them. I mentioned creator mode a little earlier, and this is a relatively new invention by LinkedIn, came out last year, whereby when you turn this on, if you are a content creator, which is a good thing to do, then it does several things. It rearranges the layout of your profile so that your activity moves further up the page. The flip side of that is that your about section moves down to underneath your activity. But it does also mean your featured section is higher up your profile, and I quite like that. Anyone who's heard me talk before knows I love the featured section because of its visual nature. If you have creator mode turned on, there's more emphasis on your profile around your activity. So more of your posts are going to be seen, and you'll get more engagement and more views, so therefore building your credibility. So that's another reason. But there is a downside, or two downsides here, depending on your situation. The first is that it changes your connect button in the introduction section of your profile, right at the very top, from connect to follow. Now that means people to connect with you have to go through more hoops. They have to do some extra steps in order to be able to send you a connection invite. They can still do it, but it's just hidden. And that's a bit of a frustration if you're trying to build your network. However, if followers are what you are after, then it's brilliant because people can just click on that and follow you. I don't believe that followers see as much of your content as connections do. So it will depend on what your objectives are on LinkedIn as to whether or not this is a good idea for you. Oh, and the size of your network already. It also displays your follower number right at the top. So if you've only got a small network, 500 or even less, well, then it's going to show that at the top of your profile. So just consider that, whether that's something you really want people to see. There are some advantages to having content creator turned on. Apparently, you get 5 times faster follower growth. Whether or not that is actually true in every single case, I would be somewhat doubtful about. I think it will depend on a number of other factors as well. But the fact that your follower growth will increase, I think, is very positive. It does establish you as an authority in your niche, and that's what we're all here to do. It makes you easier to find, and I like that. It might also impact the number of search appearances that you show up in, and that's really important. And as I said just a moment ago, it moves your content higher up your profile. On the downside, it only increases reach or engagement if the hashtags that you have specified when you turned creator on are the same as those that are in your posts. So that's something you don't necessarily see a lot written about or talked about, but that is important. And as I mentioned, it does reduce your connection invites, which I see as a downside. Now, what to write is a question that we receive all the time, and people get really hung up on this. And I get that, but it's not terribly difficult once you turn your mind to it. Here's a list on the right-hand side of the kinds of things that you might be able to write about. If you are someone who is starting out and you're not really comfortable about sharing your opinion or your ideas at this point, talking about what's going on in your industry or in your niche is a good thing to do. It shows you are up with the play, you know what's going on, you're on top of new developments. And so the way I do that is to talk about changes on LinkedIn. You might do something that's slightly different from that if you're an industry that's changing a lot. New trends, for example, then talking about those, reporting on those is a good way to write posts. Updates or developments in your field of expertise, always useful for other people to know about and potential clients. Again, shows you know what you're talking about. Many people these days want to be seen as thought leaders or experts in their field. Most of us do, in fact, and that's why we're here on LinkedIn. And so using LinkedIn's newsfeed to talk about what you know about and sharing that with people who may not know, coming up through the ranks, younger people in your industry, is a really good way of using LinkedIn and, again, building your profile, building your credibility. Business improvement. If you've got something that like tips or ideas or ways of being able to do your job better or for other people to do their jobs better that you know about, then sharing that is a really good thing to do. Tips, checklists, that kind of thing, always really helpful. Things you've learned, mistakes you've made. I use this a lot and talk about things that are going right or things that are not. And curating other people's content. So that's where somebody else has written a post or other people have written posts and you want to report on those. You can then add links or a link to that person's post if you want to do that, but then you are putting them in the spotlight, but it allows you to add your own spin on their content. As I said, make your content useful, educational, helpful, easy, and current. These are the things I believe you need to avoid. And so these are overly promotional posts, That doesn't mean to say you can't do promotional posts, but maybe scale it back a bit. 1 every 3 weeks, maybe, if you're doing a lot of other posts, is a good idea. That's perfectly acceptable. Nobody wants to read lots of sales posts. Keep that down to a dull roar. Overly personal posts. Personal posts do quite well on LinkedIn, but do remember that this is a business platform first and foremost. People get very, very annoyed if people's content gets copied. So don't plagiarize other people's material. Have your own and make sure that you talk about it from your perspective. Ultra short posts, I've talked about several times, so don't need to talk about that. But I do want to mention that polarizing posts can be a little difficult, and it's not a good idea. So, for example, political posts. If you aren't in the political arena yourself, then my suggestion is not to bother with talking about politics on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a business platform. And so do follow people who create posts that you admire, because I think that that's a really good way of learning what to do and to be able to do things better for yourself. Now then, before we started today, we did have a couple of questions. So I want to have a look at those first and foremost before we look at whether anybody else has offered any questions. And that is how to get over fear of posting. Now, this will be different for everybody, but here's my generalization on it for you if you've got some concerns about this. And that is to practice it, to do it regularly so that you learn from your mistakes like me, and that you gradually gain confidence, because it's a confidence thing on LinkedIn, and like any platform really, or anything that you're doing that's new. Just make sure that you do it on a regular basis, get better at it, and ask other people's opinions if you feel that people will give you honest feedback that isn't too demoralizing. So you want constructive feedback. I think that really a fear of posting is just because lack of knowledge and lack of practice, not necessarily lack of expertise in your field of interest or your field of knowledge, because you probably know a lot more than you think. It's a matter of just trying it out, trying the things, the different posts that you see, the different formats we've talked about today, to see what works for you and what doesn't, because you can guarantee some will do better than others. And just try to make sure that you are posting what you think other people want to read. So put yourself in other people's shoes and think about it from their perspective rather than your own. And the other question that I had was, should you like your own content? Well, the answer to that is pretty much no, because really that's not helping. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do your post any good. And people can see if you've liked your own content. So don't bother trying to do that. You can always make a comment if you wanted to. If you've forgotten something or you need to add something, then by all means put a comment at the bottom of your post. All right then, so let me come out of this for a moment and come back to just me, and I'm going to see what we've got in the way of questions. So this is the first time we've done a LinkedIn Live, so you'll have to forgive me if we're still finding our way with this. All right, so the first question was about newsletters versus polls versus personal walls, which has better reach. A personal wall, I'm not quite certain what that means, but newsletters and polls do different things. So a newsletter is long content, a poll is short content. So this is going to depend on what you really want to achieve. They've got completely different roles. So my suggestion is that you try them out for yourself and see what is going to work best for you. But certainly newsletters, we think, are doing really well at the moment, and you saw the numbers around polls. So different things, different courses for horses, whatever the phrase is. I think you'll find that works better if you just give it a shot yourself. Do you put a call to action in a newsletter, Valerie? Yes, you do. I think that's a very good idea, and thank you for mentioning that. So what kind of a call to action could you put in there? Well, you could ask people to follow you on your LinkedIn profile or on your company page. You could also send people to your website. You could make an offer. The options are endless, and so I think there's plenty of opportunities there to put a call to action. Maria's asked about my thoughts on the value of using the boost functionality for posts on the company page. Well, hand up, I haven't tried this for myself. This is a form of LinkedIn advertising, and it's something that we are intending to do to give it a try. But my suggestion for this is, if you're going to do it, then you need to make sure that you have a really good post to boost for a start, and you need to have a good number of followers on your company page. So that takes me back to mentioning that you need to be making sure that you are using those 100 follower invites every month from your page. How do you find the newsletter function? You go to articles, Leslie, and if you have content creator turned on, it will show up in the top right hand corner as create a newsletter if you're doing that from your personal profile. The same if you're going to do it from your company page. It's there under article, click write an article, and it will turn up on the top right hand side. What do I consider to be posting regularly on your company page? Right, well, in the book that I've co-authored with Michelle J. Raymond, Business Gold, we say that at least 2 to 3 times a week. Now, we tend to do it twice a week on both of our company pages. We're greedy, we've got 2. But I think that 1 is probably not enough, but 2 to 3 is probably sufficient, depending on the size of your company, and it comes back to the quality of your posts. Where do we get a background platform? I'm not quite sure what that means, Brenda. I'm sorry. Could you rephrase that and put that back as a question? Because I'm not sure what that means. What is a good SSI? A good SSI is 75 and above. That's what you want to be aiming for. And posting regularly and consistently is a good way to be able to move that up. Any cons of using creator mode? Yes, I think I mentioned that it changes the order of your profile, changes your follower, your connect button to follower. It displays how many followers you have. Those will be the cons of using creator, but if you are a regular creator on LinkedIn, then it's a really good tool to be using. And a good size, I missed one. Is there a good size for connections? So definitely over 500. And everybody knows at least 500 people, if not personally, in their networks. And so 500 is a realistic minimum, even for students. So I think that the sooner students start, the more that they will get connections that will help them throughout their business lives. Is there a benefit of posting to specific groups? Now, that's a very interesting question. And I did see a post on this today, which I have not had a chance to go further on. But from what I read, it seems that LinkedIn is now paying more attention to groups. Groups have been dead for a long time. And it looks a bit like they are now making a comeback. And so that means that, yes, posting to groups could well be a good idea. But I haven't looked at it yet myself personally. So I'm just, this is third hand, really, if you like, from what I saw on the platform today. What are your thoughts on the like, celebrate, support emoji reactions? Excellent question, Kyla. And I like to change mine up. I like to, if somebody's written a post that, say, might be supporting people in Ukraine, for example, well, then I'll use the support emoji. And there is a school of thought that says that that does give it a bit more of a boost, the post a bit of a boost. Whether that's true or not, hard to determine. And if I really love a post, I'll give it the love heart. If I think it's inspiring because it's long form, for example, then I'll use the inspiring one. So I like to change them, and I don't think that it makes too much of a difference, but it does makes the post look good because you get the different emojis sitting along the bottom. So I do like that. Should you stay away from stock photos when posting? Hi, Sandra. We use Canva, right? So as part of our Canva subscription, we have access to photos that they provide. Now, yes, we do use some of those, and you will have seen some in what we've done today, but mainly we prefer to use our own. You do need to be careful of copyright photos that might cause you to get into a bit of trouble. So definitely watch out for that. But otherwise, stock images, I think people are used to seeing those. So if they work for your post, why not? Different forms of documents. What different forms of documents can be used on LinkedIn? That's an interesting question too. So presentations like this will make great document posts, provided, of course, that you've got lots of words. So mostly it's words, not video, that show up in document posts because, well, that's what a document is. It's generally more in the way of words. So if you've got a checklist, that's on an A4, perhaps it looks nice with a nice header and footer, that would make a good document post as well. You do need to make sure that the first slide or the top of the page is a bit eye-catching. Otherwise, people might just gloss over them. So do try to have something that's really quite visual. I think that makes a difference. And do the newsletters on LinkedIn tie nicely with MailChimp newsletters? I have no idea. I suspect not. My guess is that you would have to do them separately. We need to check that out for ourselves because we do them on both. So my guess is at this stage, no, but don't hold me to that because I'm not really entirely sure about that. Now then, I think that looks to me like we've got all the questions, although I'm not quite sure we got that one about the wall back again. I haven't at all. So if you've asked some questions, I've been talking for nearly an hour. And so if you have any questions that I have not answered today that you would like answered, then please send me a direct message. Now, my understanding is that once our broadcast is finished here, then it's not easy to see any comments. So I may be able to see the comments, but I don't know that I'll be able to then get them back to you. So if you have a question, please do come back to me about it personally as a direct message on LinkedIn. Now, if you are not yet following me or connected to me on LinkedIn, please do so. I'm always keen to be connecting with people who are interested in LinkedIn. So please do connect. You can follow me if you like, but do take the extra couple of steps to connect and send me a message to say you saw me on the webinar and that you would like to connect. And please follow our company page as well. We run events like this on LinkedIn each month. And so if you would like to get notifications about those, then please follow our company page. And finally, if you are serious about LinkedIn, then please join our membership site. We've got more than 100 pieces of content, and it's webinars, videos, podcast interviews, articles, checklists, tips, you name it, on our site about various aspects of LinkedIn. And we'd love you to join our LinkedIn LinkAbility community because we believe that's a really good way to help people to use LinkedIn in really positive ways to achieve the results that they want. And we also offer free monthly group coaching as a part of that. And each month we take a different LinkedIn topic and just talk about that. And from there, I'd just like to invite you to go to our membership site and to have a look. You can get your first week free, and we would love to see you on there and have a chat with you also about LinkedIn. So thank you so very much indeed for joining us today. We'll be back again next month, in fact, on May the 12th with another webinar. And we're hoping that we may be able to continue these on LinkedIn Lives. It's been an interesting exercise for us, the first time that we've done it, and we have learned a lot from it. So thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you on the next one.